Ken Trahan with Lenny Van Gilder. It's our First NBC Bank Weekend Review. Brought to you by First NBC Bank with 35 locations throughout southeast Louisiana and into the Florida Panhandle. That's First NBC Bank, proud sponsor of SportsNola.com. NFL drafts coming up, but first, the other team that the Benson family owns, the New Orleans Pelicans. What gives? What do we read into the fact that they scheduled a press conference with Dell Demps, a season ender, if you will, for Monday, and then decided to cancel it the next day? It's an interesting dynamic, Lenny, and everybody's speculating, and understandably so, because they've left room for speculation by doing this.
Well, I think what it comes down to is this. They have not made a final decision on the future of management.
I agree.
And rather than commit at this point and say, oh, yeah, he's back, you don't have to ask him any questions, you're hanging somebody out to dry if you put them on a stage without that commitment out there. So from that standpoint, it makes perfect sense. Now, I think a lot of people want to read to say, oh, now they made up their mind to fire him. I don't think that's the case at all. I think it's more the case of they haven't made up their mind about anything at this point. And when you asked me about the other team, I thought you were going to ask me about the horse racing end of things. So
that's coming up, too.
That is coming up 12 days from now, by the way.
Yeah, we'll do that next week.
Yes.
But read into it what you may. Bottom line is that you have a right to, and everything's speculation at this point. There's a real chance that Dell Demps will be back. And then again, who knows? Maybe not.
Maybe not. We'll stay tuned, as they say.
With the Saints, as mentioned, the NFL draft begins on Thursday. They're in the 12th slot. If they trade, I suspect it would be down, not up. That said, there should be a pretty good choice at number 12 based upon a good fit for their team. Everybody focusing on rankings, and understandably so. But if Hargrave slips a couple of spots, it would be hard to pass up at cornerback. And then again, as you look at the wide receiver position, Laquan Treadwell's an awfully good football player. So, I mean, there's a lot of guys that could be there that would give them a sound selection at that pick.
Well, I can tell you right now what we're going to hear Thursday night. He was the number one guy on our board at that
That's
point.
what you should hear.
It's what you should hear, right. I mean, here's the thing. The Saints have a number of needs. I think they have more needs on the defensive side of the ball and the offensive side of the ball. I think we would all say that. But they have needs. And especially now that, you ended the Marcus Colston era, a big athletic wide receiver. If Treadwell is there at 12, that's intriguing. Although you do have, the ability to get a lineman who could play tackle, could play end, can rush the passer, like Rankins. That's very intriguing as well. Depending on how this whole thing shakes out, like we talked about last week, I think these moves with teams trading up to the 1 and 2 spots, basically assuring the two quarterbacks are going to be off the board at 1 and 2, have helped the Saints in that regard.
Here's my thought. If there's going to be a trade, it seems to me you stay at 12, you pick the best player on your board. If that happens to be Rankins, you pick Rankins. If Hargraves is there, you pick Hargraves. But then you look at your number 2 and 3 picks and anything else. If you're going to make a trade, maybe you trade up late into the first round. If one of those guys is going to be there and you think he's going to be there, you feel strongly about it, that's where you might consider trading.
I'm going to disagree with that. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to give you 2 words. Mark Ingram. I know Ingram's been good, but look at what the Saints had to give away to the Patriots. They got fleeced on that deal to get back late in the first round to go pick Ingram. They gave up next year's 1 and their 2
for an average NFL running back.
For a running back, okay? And a guy, you're right. He's been all right,
solid but average. Yeah.
Right. And I mean, that's especially at a position that is, I don't want to say a dime a dozen in the NFL, but obviously the way the running backs are being used, which we haven't even gotten into the whole Ezekiel Elliott conversation, but it's, the guy's obviously very talented, but how do you deal with him in the draft? Somebody's going to jump up there early on and take him, and you got to wonder, exactly what you've got there, just based on how running backs are treated these days in the NFL.
It's real good. I think he's worth it, and he's the best back in the draft. Stay tuned. College baseball, LSU salvaged one against Mississippi State, and I know it sounds funny, but that was crucial. They had to have that game.
They did. Basically, if you lose that game, you've just thrown away everything you did at Missouri the weekend before. And the other thing to remember is this, and I've brought this up time and time again. This is, you think about wins and losses, but the RPI formula calculates things differently. You get penalized for home losses. You get helped by road wins. So as we're about to lead into the Tulane and UNO portion of the conversation, they help themselves immensely by sweeping on the road, which is the equivalent of 3.9 wins. LSU won 1 at home, which is the equivalent of 0.7 wins. So, and 2.6 losses, I might add. There's a math test coming up on this later, but that's where, at the end of the day, those are the types of things that 2 out of 3 to Mississippi State losing at home, 2 out of 3 to Alabama losing at home. That is much worse than just 1 and 2 at the end of the day.
Another series win for Southeastern as well. LSU Tulane coming up. That's a big game for Tulane in the RPI. But speaking of RPI, UNO's not out of this thing, are they?
Well, I think they've got to do some things on the field, move way up in the conference race. As you sit here on Monday morning, there are 8 teams from Louisiana in the top 75 of the RPI.
That's amazing, isn't it?
I think it's 2 things. One, you got good baseball down here. But 2, then what happens is playing in decent leagues and you all play each other, in the middle of the week, which ends up helping your RPI. There's a problem with the RPI, especially, people have done way more studies on this than I would ever claim to do. It's why the West Coast was so good in the RPI for so many years, because, again, they would all play each other. There's only so many schools on the West Coast you could play. You're not going to fly across the country in the middle of the week to go play a non-conference game. So when those schools were good, they would all help each other, and it was kind of a false positive, so to speak. I don't think that's the case here. I think there's some pretty good baseball being played, and you even add in like Southern Miss and South Alabama, who are both having extraordinary years, who show up on a lot of these schools' non-conference schedules in the area. And it's a good year for this area in college baseball. Still 4 weeks to go in the regular season. Let's see how it plays out.
The Zephyrs season continuing, and yet the big news surrounds off-the-field news, and that is a name change. I have mixed emotions about it, having been involved with the franchise from the start, and the name Zephyrs indigenous to the culture because of the Zephyr being here previously, but let's face it, the name did come from Denver, so I understand it. They'll make a splash, they'll get media out of it, and they'll probably get some fan support in the process, so I have no problem with that.
2 things with this. One is the fact that this happens a lot in minor league baseball. Names change. You can look around the Pacific Coast League where the Zephyrs call home. In Oklahoma City's had, I think, 3 name changes. Omaha's changed back and forth about 3 or 4 different times now. Others have done this as well, rebrand, whatever the case may be. But this is also New Orleans, where people don't like change, okay? Sorry if I offend anybody right away with that. People don't like change in New Orleans. They want things to stay the same. They like what is theirs, and they've associated with this name for 24 years.
That's the difference between this and the Hornets, just to interject, is that the Hornets weren't here that long to establish that is their name. Most people that have come on board with the Zephyrs don't even know that this came from Denver at this point.
No, it didn't. But look, even before Denver was the Zephyrs, they were the Bears.
That's right.
I think I went to a Denver Bears game at some point at Old Mile High Stadium. But anyhow, look, I understand it. Why the franchise is doing it. I also understand why some of the pushback right away has been, hey, why do we need to change anything? Keep the Z's. Hashtag keep the Z's has been out there a lot. So
yeah, I like the Z's and I like the name. Not to mention the fact that there goes my merchandise. Although it might be worth something. What the heck?
Maybe it will be. Okay.
It's all good. All right. Speaking of Zephyr Field, the SEC tournament. What do you think?
Well, it's going to be interesting. The SEC just announced officially on Monday, it kind of leaked out in the last couple of days, the SEC coming to do a site survey on Saturday. Look, the field, the facility is certainly workable. The fan support base, you got LSU an hour up the road, would be incredible. My concern is this: what are they truly coming in? What are their parameters as they come in? Because look at what you're competing against on Saturday: Zurich Classic, Jazz Fest. College baseball going on all over the area. You've got Tulane, UNO, and Delgado all at home Saturday during the day. So
high school baseball
high school baseball, second round of the playoffs. You're looking at no fewer than 3 or 4 series potentially going on in the area on Saturday. That's going to eat into it. That's going to eat into your baseball fan base. Whereas when you put on the SEC tournament, obviously the Zephyrs are out of town. All the college teams are at their conference tournaments. High school's over. You own the day. So I think it needs to be about the facility and what it is that they can do. Look, the Zephyrs trying to drum up some fan support for it. I applaud them for that, to try to make this look good. I would love to see this thing come back to New Orleans. I remember the one year it was at the Superdome in 1992.
Me too.
Yeah, so it's it would be good to have it back here. Look, we love events in this town. Zephyrs and the Sports Foundation working to try to make this happen.
Would be great. Finally, high school baseball and the playoffs underway in earnest starting Monday and continuing, and SportsNoah.com will be there.
There's 2 local 5A games, local team versus local team. We got them both for you right here at sportsnola.com. Monday night, John Curtis Chalmette from Mike Miley, 6 o'clock. Tuesday night, it will be Brother Martin St. Paul's from venerable Kirsch-Rooney Stadium. 7 o'clock first pitch for that one. Watch them both right here at sportsnola.com. If you're away from your computer, they're both going to be simulcast on radio as well. The Monday night game on WGSO, the Tuesday night game on WSLA. So no matter what, you could follow it. You and Danny will have the call, and look forward to some great baseball as the playoffs get underway. In 3 weeks, we'll have a champion.
You got it. Looking forward to it. Zurich Classic coming up this week. Of course, looking forward to that with great anticipation. We'll have full coverage there, and also high school softball championship weekend begins this weekend in Sulphur, too. So it's a busy time in sports. We're looking forward to bringing it all to you, and you just need to be at sportsnola.com to get it. Did I get that right?
I think you got it right.
All right, thanks. Have a good week.
We'll see you later this week.
That's our First NBC Bank Weekend Review, brought to you by First NBC Bank with 35 locations throughout the New Orleans area and beyond. That's First NBC Bank, proud sponsor of sportsnola.com. He's Lenny. I'm Kenny. Have a great weekend. God bless you.